Now, boundaries, let's rewire the way we look at that word. All boundaries are preferences. Oftentimes, lifestyle preferences, what you would prefer to experience today or in the future, or lack thereof, what you prefer not to experience. The reason why people fight, and this is what no one really talks about, but is the truth. The reason why people fight is because
I really do think this is the part of boundaries that no one's talking about. The sole focus on boundaries right now is say it. It's very selfish. I want things to be a certain way, and I'm just going to tell you that. But however you react is not my problem. It may not be your problem, but if you want to maintain this relationship and actually build a bridge between you and this person, you will hold them in compassion.
If our preferences are very reasonable, and oftentimes preferences lead to the highest growth for everyone involved, not burdens to other people, that is when you can have a relationship with anyone in your life that feels expansive, that feels growthful, that feels like there's never this disconnection from love. And let me go even deeper. The reason why we don't have boundaries in relationships is because people fear of feeling what will come up when someone says it.
Welcome back to Listen Before Love. We are back again with another wonderful exploratory episode. And we've got a really good one for y'all today. Based on real life events, yet again, we are rolling it back to the topic of boundaries. And this time, we're going to talk about how do you establish boundaries in a relationship with love. So this, as I said, inspired by real life events this morning. So I would love, baby, for you to bring us into what happened this morning from your perspective. I'm just so curious how you would tell the story.
So there's been a handful of times in a relationship where for either party, but in particular recently, it's been more about me speaking my boundaries towards you. And this morning, we usually wake up around 7:30. I woke up a little bit earlier, woke you up a little bit earlier, so around 7. Now, if you don't know anything about Elle, it doesn't take anything to get her rolling. She is ready to have the equivalent to like a TEDx talk, like public speaking to the max, the most persuasive, pronounced conversation to have ever existed as soon as she wakes up.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
What can I say?
And she can go on for as long as you allow her. As long as you'd like. And I've noticed, and I love this part of her so much. It's one of the many, many things that I deeply, deeply enjoy about you and keeps me well entertained, well inspired, well in the know about you, about reality as a whole. So overall, it is just an incredible gift that you have.
Thank you.
This morning, I pointed out to you that us strategizing the perfect ending to our newsletters on how to properly put a link into that newsletter that would best attract people to a certain website for us to get an affiliate commission from was not my highest preference about 7 minutes into waking up.
Right. Yeah, I guess we can't all want to talk about link placement straight off the jump. But
no.
Listen.
And so one thing about boundaries in a relationship is oftentimes you don't recognize that you want more understanding by both parties for that said situation, that environment, that circumstance, until those boundaries have been tested, until you feel a little uncomfortable, until you feel a little annoyed. And this morning, and the past, I won't say past handful of mornings, this happened again a handful of days prior, and then happened before that months ago, where I would say things when I was feeling annoyed and I feel like this just isn't the right time to be talking about this, where I would say comments that would trigger both parties, but in particular the receiver, in a way that felt derogatory, in a way that felt as if I was accusing or did not like them anymore. And again, that is completely okay. I think as we speak upon boundaries, it's very important to make sure it's always coming from a loving place, a place where we're taking into consideration how passionate people are about what they're speaking or what they're saying and what they're doing. And I've done that I wouldn't say I've done A+ job at that. I've done, I would say, probably a C+ job at that. I know when I'm in those situations where, let's say like this morning, where you begin to talk about the best place to put this link in our email as I'm still like cuddling up against like your giant bosoms in the morning. Like I'm like barely awake, and you're just like, you know what we got to do for our email? And I'm like, can I just wake up in peace,
Yeah.
And so I was having that feeling come on, and about 2.5 minutes into the whole structure, I'm like, I gotta end this. I'm losing my mind here. Like, let me just peacefully wake up. Let me go make her some water, some cacao. Let me go, look, stare in the sun for a little bit, wake myself up. I'm like, this is just not the time, right? And so I forgot exactly do you remember what I said?
Well, here's the thing about it. This is where he gets the C+, okay? Because he usually just kind of says, hey, baby, I really would prefer not to talk about this right now. Can we talk about this later? And I just want you to imagine. Let's just imagine for a second. You're like on a tear, right? I am in the divine flow of the universe on this affiliate link placement. I literally am channeling this infinite business wisdom, and he just goes, hey, baby, I really prefer not to talk about this right now. At least that's how it feels to me. Now, this is the funny part. It probably isn't as extreme and like mean as it feels in the moment, because I'll just be honest with you, I have this kind of thing where if I'm interrupted, it feels like the end of the world. Like it literally feels like a personal attack.
Oh, don't I know it?
It feels like we had this moment happen. Well, no, I don't want to reveal anything, but
okay.
Go ahead.
So we call that a C+, right?
Right.
I stated what was my highest preference in the moment. I did not raise my voice. I did not get angry.
No.
But
it was abrupt.
Most definitely.
It felt abrupt.
Now, an A+ would probably wait for that conversation to end, be gratifying, congratulate her on this incredible awareness, divine business download, apparently, that she got at 7:07 in the morning as we woke up, a few minutes prior. I could have been more congratulatory and then been like, hey, in the future, is it okay if we keep business discussions until, let's say, half an hour after we've awakened, or let's say, especially how our days are most weekdays, after we have our great morning call, and so we're done at 8:45. So can we wait like an hour to have these conversations? We're more awake. We got some liquids in us. We're more up. We've been, that probably would have been the more eloquent way of going upon it. But when a boundary, you feel as if, even though a boundary is oftentimes after you speak into existence, but if you feel some uncomfortability and some irritation come up that is in need of a boundary, oftentimes you're not in the exact place at that very moment to say it in the most kind, eloquent, A+ way of doing it. And so it could have been a lot worse, and a lot of people do it much worse, but I would give that a C+ for that. Now, the reason for bringing all this up is that, of course, we're all not perfect, and we may either receive some things in a certain way that isn't reflective on the intentions behind the person that sent it. And we may not send it in a way that's reflective upon the amount of love and respect and intention you want to give to that person that's going to be receiving it. Those oftentimes is the case in situation. But the point of boundaries are so important in a relationship. Whether they're very small, like something like that, like, hey, let's not really talk about business until after our morning routine, whatever it is, or big things like can you name some big things real quick that come to mind for you, either that we've had or other people have had?
Yeah, I would say boundaries on big things would be if there's a lifestyle difference. If it's like hey, you go out and I really want to spend time with you, or if it's something around money, like someone's spending habits, or maybe something around who's going to take care of the bills. Is that me or you? Or even cleanliness, like who's responsible for certain things.
Yeah.
There are definitely...
Sex is a huge one.
Sex, exactly. Intimacy in general. Those are kind of like the bigger, more tentpole things. But I think what's pretty funny is that if you have the small boundaries in place, they prevent the larger, looming, scary boundary from even happening, because all a big boundary is a combination of little boundaries.
Yeah.
And so if you're good on this, as Cam is very good on this, even though it kind of hurts me in the moment and I get sent into fight or flight and the whole 9 happens, but like I need to practice getting myself back down from that state. And so this is very helpful when he does this, even though it does hurt in the moment. All of the reps of this exact micro boundary, you want to call it, prevent larger issues in our relationship. Like our relationship never experiences a big, heavy conversation that one of us doesn't see coming. It just doesn't happen because we do this.
Most definitely. And that's why it's so important to have those boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, boundaries, let's rewire the way we look at that word, because there's a lot of emotional charge behind the word boundaries, a very common word nowadays. All boundaries are preferences, oftentimes lifestyle preferences, what you would prefer to experience today or in the future, or lack thereof, what you prefer not to experience. And so I made the preference call, as opposed to the word boundary, this morning. But let's keep the very much left thinking brain. I got to be full up. I got to be looking at some spreadsheets. Got to be looking at the email itself. Let's leave the topics of conversation that would be necessary for that version of myself throughout the day, which will come, but just not at that moment. Let's leave that for later, right? And so that is a preference that if I speak, no matter how small that is, can have a profound effect on not needing a blowout fight later on.
Yeah.
The reason why people fight, and this is what no one really talks about, but is the truth. The reason why people fight is because there are what feels oftentimes a million different micro preferences that they're not speaking into existence. And so it's just these little daggers they take every single day, little sharp little needle pins. Like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, don't like that. Oh, don't like that. Don't like that. Don't like how he wakes up that way. I don't like how he says that to me. Don't like all these other things. They build this almost like monster worth of pain that must be let go of. And oftentimes that results into fighting.
And a big blowout explosion.
That is the only reason. There are very, very few things that done just individually can lead to someone having a blowout explosion.
Exactly.
Very few extreme situations. The far from majority of fighting is small little things that people don't speak up about that lead to something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I am of the mindset, I know you are of the mindset, and I believe this is a mindset that I implore everyone to potentially embody if they want to have a fantastic life. And that is, you can live your life in accordance with your highest preferences. You can have it exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And it actually is the most healthy way to live it. Because why would I ever want to create tension between you and I?
Right.
Why would I ever want to potentially withhold love from you for even like a microsecond when things like this would happen? I wouldn't want that. I want to keep this energetic transference of just love, connection, intimacy, kindness, generosity, service, everything. I want to keep that door, that window, that hand on hand being connected. I want to keep that flowing as easily as possible.
Right.
And so anything that I'm doing that isn't your highest preference, I want you to speak up about.
Right.
And I want to make sure I create an environment that one feels safe enough to speak up about that. The same goes for me. I don't want to live in a world where every day little micro things happen and I'm just like, gotta put up with that again today.
Right.
Because that is what leads to divorce. That's what leads to people not liking each other. And this happens between spouses. This happens between mothers and children, fathers and children. It happens between friends. It is the
coworkers.
reason. It is the reason for conflict.
Yeah.
Is people not honoring their preferences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes preferences are way out there. One would say my highest preference is to wake up to a back massage every single day with you feeding me grapes and all this. Like, that's also a preference, but that is also, I don't see that as being reasonable.
Right.
And so, although maybe that'll be great, that's just not feeding into our lifestyle at this moment. Maybe some days, you never know. But at this moment, that's just not going to happen. Nor if I really think, I don't really want that. It's just more of like a theoretical type thing. If our preferences are very reasonable, And oftentimes preferences lead to the highest growth for everyone involved, not burdens to other people. That is when you can have a relationship with anyone in your life that feels expansive, that feels growthful, that feels like there's never this disconnection from love for each other. This is what allows for us to, in a healthy way, not fight.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for how receptive you've been to things. Like, there's been a few days where like I'd say something and emotions come up for you.
Yeah.
And that is completely okay. Another thing I see oftentimes is when someone speaks their highest preference and the receiver responds to it in a certain way that isn't just, water off their back, it just rolls off their shoulders, no problem. If they are a little sad, if they're a little angry, if they're a little, I don't know about that, if they do feel shameful or guilty, whatever it is, I see the people that sent that preference, that boundary, not feel comfortable with the receiver choosing it to receive it in which any way they want.
Mm.
And that's what causes people to stop saying their preferences, and what causes the receiver to feel like this unique energy behind it of, oh, they don't like me anymore. Oh, they're going to leave me now. Oh, they're going to do this and that. And so I'm saying all this because when we are speaking our preferences, we must be okay within ourselves for them to receive it any which way they'd like.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not comfortable with her being sad, if I'm not comfortable with her being angry or shameful or guilty, and just holding her with love in those moments, what I'm doing is being like, I want things this way. Oh, but don't act like that to it.
Yeah.
And then withholding that from her. That's doubling down on me saying something that's not probably her highest preference, not something she's expecting, with an avoidance of love that reaffirms a pattern that leads to an abusive relationship. Oftentimes a one-sided abusive relationship does happen often.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to send your highest preference, oftentimes one must be ready to hold the person that is receiving it.
This is big. Yeah.
What comes up for you around that?
No, I think this is what people get wrong. I really do think this is the part of boundaries that no one's talking about. The sole focus on boundaries right now is say it. Like, it's very selfish. It's very, I want things to be a certain way, and I'm just going to tell you that. But however you react is not my problem. It may not be your problem, but if you want to maintain this relationship and actually build a bridge between you and this person, you will hold them in compassion in response to the boundary you set with them. And I think that's what you do very well, that most people fumble. And so let me bring you into what happened this morning, because it's easier to understand these things in stories. So, today we're laying there. I start going on a tear about the affiliate link. Very excited about that to this moment, by the way. Going on a tear. And it felt abrupt. Now, this is why I keep saying it felt abrupt, because in these moments, because I have a hard time going through, it's like a deep wound for me. Like when someone speaks their preference, I take it very personally because I have childhood wounds in this area and I don't have a lot of practice with boundaries. So I understand that how I am taking in this moment is probably amplified from what was actually happening, because it was through a lens of trauma, to be honest with you, and not the reality of the situation. Cam is very calm and he never raises his voice. And I know in the moment when I think back to it and really just calm myself down, we are laying there and he didn't say it abruptly. It felt abrupt though. He was just like, hey baby, I'd prefer if we talk about this later. And in the moment that he said that, this is what I noticed. I noticed my heart started beating really fast. I kind of stopped breathing, which made my heart beat faster. I felt like I wanted to run away. Like I really wanted to leave the bed because we're cuddling, but he almost like wouldn't let me leave. It's hard to explain, but it was like he was holding me And I was like, well, this feels good, but I also want to leave, but I guess I'll stay, because he didn't loosen his grip. Okay. This is big though, because a lot of the time, if you can sense that someone wants to leave, you almost like allow them to leave. Right. And I understand how you could think this would be sweet, but it's actually allowing the cycle to continue. Because if he like loosened his grip, I would have taken that through my trauma lens and my trauma sunglasses as, oh, he wants me to leave, so I'm going to leave. Okay. This just makes it keep going forever. So because he didn't even change the way he was holding me at all, like he just stayed right there like a rock. And then I'm sitting there, my eyes are wide, my heart's beating fast. I'm like not breathing as deeply as I was before. I'm like feeling very weird emotions in my body start to come up. But because I stayed in the position, I was able to like have a spike and then stay with the spike and then come down. This is big. This is big. I'm like bringing you through the specifics because I really do feel this part is where the cycle continues. This part is where you keep leaving because their fight or flight is always the flight. It's always the flight. So then we got up out of bed and I was okay again. I had like brought myself up and down and we were okay. And I didn't bring it up because usually when I bring up things like this, I get emotional and I somewhat tend to avoid having I don't want to go there myself. But Cam brought it up. So he was like, do you want to talk about what happened in there? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure.
It's exactly like that. Now, before we go on to the conversation we had, I want to first bring it back to how I held you in that moment.
Yeah.
Because this is very important. Now, I would say I'm darn near professional at this.
Yeah, you're very good
I
at
teach
it.
this.
Yeah.
And like this is something that I'm playing at a different level than most can.
Yeah.
But when you are first initially bringing boundaries to a relationship, it is very important for the person receiving to feel as if they have the freedom in that moment to act or react however they'd like.
Mm.
And so if this is the first time relationship that we were discussing boundaries, not even discussing boundaries, but I was placing a boundary or preference and you were receiving it, I would make sure that you have the freedom with your mind, with your body, with your emotions to do whatever you want.
Right.
Because I'm not going to hold on to someone.
Yeah.
I want them to, if they want to walk away, if they want to get up and stomp on the ground, if they want to cry, if they want to throw a tantrum, that's all perfect. That's all actually very much needed. That's oftentimes a step in the right direction for most people because the only time they've ever had that in their life, probably their parents give them directions and they'd be punished if they were to react a certain way. Right. Don't cry, don't throw a tantrum. So them express themselves in whatever way they want to in that moment, it's completely fine. Myself, knowing you deeply, like very, very well, and having had these type of conversations many, many times, I knew what was going to happen. And it felt right for me in that moment. I would not have done this if that wasn't the case. But it felt right for me in that moment to maintain holding on to, if not tighter than before, to show you that I am not metaphorically or symbolically releasing my love for you.
Right.
I'm not letting go of this relationship.
Because that's what it kind of feels like when you're in an activated state of your nervous system.
Yes.
Is everything is amplified. So even the comment that he made, even though it wasn't like that objectively, it felt very harsh because that's how I received it. That's what I'm healing though. The only way you can heal this and get to a place where comments like this don't like cause this huge alarm bell in you is moments like this.
Yes.
Is moments where he said something, I received it, and then it was okay. Like that is how you encode a new situational awareness into your body. You can't really do it any other way.
Because you were ready for the next level of growth when it came to receiving advice like this.
Yeah.
Fresh out the gate, first time putting these things, it's important for the sender to oftentimes verbally say, and also by their actions portray an environment, a circumstance where that person who just received this still feels unconditional love.
Right.
Still feels like, I'm not a bad girl or bad boy. I'm not a bad person, do anything wrong.
Right.
It's just no longer the person receiving its highest preference, and that's okay. That's completely fine. And so someone who is sending advice like that, whether it's to a romantic relationship or to their mother or to their best friend, it's important for the message along with that boundary or preference to show that this, me saying this, is not a reflection on you.
Yeah.
Because it isn't. They didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything right. I'm just stating my highest preference to make sure that this relationship feels best for both parties going forward. And so because no one did anything wrong, because it's not even really a thing, but because there's none of that energy behind it, it is incredibly important to, as the sender, not withhold judgment.
Yeah.
Or withhold love, excuse me, by then projecting judgment. So that is the 4D chess version of boundaries and stating highest preferences that no one talks about, but does make the difference.
Yeah.
And one thing you were saying earlier, I really want to touch on again, is the reaction you had to it felt as if it was more than what reasonably would be the reaction to something like that.
Right. It was heightened.
Right. Now, if I all of a sudden don't do that, whatever, or if I go crazy on you, it would make sense to have that type of reaction. But if someone's sending a certain preference or boundary, is very calm and very loving, and the thing itself is relatively reasonable, and we have the awareness to realize, oh, this feels like very rough within.
Yeah.
This feels like, why does that feel like a life or death? It's important to note that there's more to this than what was just said, what was just stated.
Yeah.
If your emotions feel extreme, they are not invalid. Let's get that very clear. Your emotions in every situation is valid. They may not be 100% reasonable for the trigger that caused it. That's why it's a trigger, not the whole enchilada. It's a very small little set of words over a small situation that triggered a massive wound. And that is completely okay. That's why it's completely okay to react however it is you want to react, because oftentimes you're reacting on something that's much, much bigger than just a small thing. It's like when someone in Antarctica claps and then an entire avalanche happens.
Yeah.
That's really what feels like is going on oftentimes.
Yeah. And you'll experience this, at least I do, as flooding, meaning that you feel the emotion rush through your whole body like a wave. And it almost just your eyes widen, you maybe even start to have some tears well up that you're trying to combat, because you're like, wait, why am I so upset out of the sun? That's what it feels like. So if you experience the flooding of emotions, it's probably something deeper from the past that is coming up in this moment.
And let me go even deeper. The reason why we don't have boundaries in relationships is because people fear of feeling what will come up when someone says it. So someone doesn't speak their highest preference or boundary because they're afraid of how others will react.
Yeah.
And so because we're afraid of other people expressing those emotions, because we feel as if it makes us uncomfortable, makes us the bad guy because we said something to provoke them, we're like, I'm not going to mess with any of that. I'm just going to have death by 1,000 cuts take place in this relationship. But if we can turn a page to a new chapter where we can say something from a place of love, from a place that is our full truth and authentic version of ourselves, that is our highest preference to another person, and fully love them, observe them, care for them with whatever emotion comes up, no matter how minor or major happens, that is rewriting the story in our head to be completely okay with whatever happens. Because if I say something small and you react in a huge way, that is the most darkest emotions, the shame, the guilt, whatever it is, and you get up and run out the room, or you start you start like trying to provoke a fight, whatever it is, to defend yourself, whatever it may be. If we can handle that in those emotions and hold them with the level of unconditional love, there is nothing to fear around your relationship with your partner.
Yeah.
There is nothing to fear in relationship with your friend, your mother, whatever it is. So it takes an immense amount of responsibility, which is the ability to respond from the person sending a preference. But if one is ready to hold that, it will lead to the best possible relationship you could ever imagine with that person. That person is going to respect you, trust you, and oftentimes love you deeper than they ever had before once that space has been given for those emotions to be felt.
Yeah.
And it may take a while to get there, but once it's done, over time, the level of trust you have for me, knowing that I'm going to speak my highest preference and that I'm happy in this relationship, that I'm feeling cared for, that I'm feeling respected, and that I'm doing this so for you, is now more because of the preferences and boundaries I've stated than ever before.
Yeah.
And that will continue to happen throughout any relationship. But if someone the entire time is like, no, everything's fine. Yep, just walk all over me, do whatever you want, act however there's a level of not full trust there. You don't feel as if people are speaking their highest truth, their most authentic selves. That's what leads to a lot of fallouts in most relationships.
Yeah.
And bringing that all back, I want to say, like, it feels so good to be with someone that is willing to go there in those moments, that is willing to look at what potentially happened in the past, the deeper reasoning for a reaction when a boundary is received like that.
Yeah.
And if you can find, whether it's a friend, a lover, anyone in your life that is able to take feedback like that and express themselves fully, whatever it is in the moment, but then after that expression is done, can meet you with open, loving arms, be like, okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'll make sure to like not do it in the future. That makes sense. Oh, by the way, there's also the few things you do that if we can change, that'll be great. If you can find someone like that, guaranteed it's going to be a fantastic relationship. Because the absence of that is what leads to all problems in relationships. So I'm just very grateful. It feels like every day we are just reaffirming to each other that, like, you're my person. And like, we're just meant to be, you know, and what we speak upon is something we're actively doing our best to live, do and be and embody.
Yeah.
Very grateful for that.
Yeah. And I will say that today's situation around boundaries was very helpful for me because this has been a journey. Now, we didn't start where Cam articulated today. We didn't start with Cam holding on to me and not really like changing his body posture so that I could have a signal of, oh no, I'm here and it's okay and I don't need to run and I can be safe. But we didn't start that way, and we'll get into that in a second. But I just want to share that as a result of what happened this morning, I was able to click together some pieces of the puzzle that had been somewhat of a mystery to me. I think recently there's been like a layer of my story in my childhood that I've been exploring. I think in a prior episode on feminine and masculine energy, I talked about how I think a lot of my disconnection from my body and a lot of my like inability to express emotions or speak my truth was because my dad was a very successful, busy CFO at a casino and I didn't see him. And so I made a connection that why I couldn't speak my feelings was because my dad was not home a lot. And when he was home, we really wouldn't talk to him because understandably he was incredibly tired from working all day. And I kind of made that connection because it was the more obvious one. I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Like my dad wasn't there, so I have a problem. Like I perform for men and I don't want to speak the truth to men because I didn't know how. And I do think that there is an element of that that's true. But I think there's a deeper learning that was sneaky. And what came up for me today with this boundary example was that, and I say this with no judgment and no fault at all. It just is. And the way that I was raised is perfect. And it gave me exactly the lessons I needed to learn. And I'm grateful to unpack all of this now and to maybe help someone out there who's listening to this really feel seen and to click a piece of the puzzle in for them. But I never really looked at my mom and my mom's side of the equation until recently. And I think I've started to realize that we didn't really have any boundaries in our house. And I picked up this pattern of running away from childhood because when my mom would tell me to do something and I didn't feel like I could say no, or when I did say no, it was like almost voided. It was like no didn't exist. The only way that I knew to get out of the situation was to go to my room and close the door and lock it and then avoid everyone. And I think I just picked up this pattern of having something happen, not knowing that if I spoke my truth, it didn't matter, and then leaving. And that's how I soothed myself. And I think that that's why I can be incredibly avoidant of conflict, because I had over 18 years of this repeated pattern on a near daily basis ingrained into my system. And again, there's no judgment. Of course, this is a parental dynamic. You know, my mom was doing her best. We had a lot of kids in the house, but I think especially there was a part of me that all of my siblings kind of reacted in the same way. Like my sister would go to her room, my brother Aaron would go to his room, I would go to my room. We all kind of reacted to it in the same way, which is interesting to me. But I think I did it in an interesting way. I wouldn't want to hurt my mom's feelings if I could help it. So I would wait a couple of minutes after the fight to leave because it was almost like I didn't want to make her feel bad. But it wasn't like this every time. There were times where, like Cam was talking about, when you have boundaries continuously denied, you blow up like a powder keg. And I did have moments like that. I will say, especially as a kid. But I think a lot of the times when I would get into the situation, I wouldn't want to hurt my mom's feelings by making it so obvious that something she said made me go to my room. So I would wait and almost like pretend like everything was okay and then sneak away and then be very upset and like cry and have a reaction. But that reaction was like not seen by anyone. That's the real reason why I have a hard time expressing my feelings to people and why I have had a very hard time with boundaries and speaking my truth. Because first of all, when I was young and I did this, it wasn't really taken into consideration. So as Cam was saying, let's use this as an example. If you're someone who speaks a boundary, but cannot receive the response to the boundary, you are in some ways harming that person. And I'm not saying that in a dramatic way. I'm saying that if you are setting a boundary and then you're not allowing the person to express in whatever way they want, whether that's sadness or whether that's, wait, what do you mean? Or can you give me more examples? If you're not holding space for whatever the reaction is, they're going to internalize a level of rejection from you that will make the fight or flight happen. And that, I think, is what happened to me, because why I was able to find this part of my puzzle, my endless puzzle of my soul, was because after we had this moment today, we're in the kitchen and Cam brought up, baby, would you like to talk about it? What came up for you in that moment? And then I was able to articulate to him, well, when you said that to me, I had a series of thoughts run through my head very fast that made me very overwhelmed. And those thoughts sounded like, he hates me and he doesn't like me anymore. And I'm wrong. I did something wrong. I hurt his feelings. I messed up. I can't recover from this. I'm stupid. I didn't read the room right. And all of these thoughts just looped really, really fast. And that's what would make my heart beat very fast. This is what would make like tears well in my eyes, because it's like this this loop. These are all the things that I think I picked up from the first 18 years of my life in these moments. Now, no one is at fault for this because people are doing the best they can with the tools that they have and the resources they have at the time. When I was growing up, all of these concepts were not discussed. There weren't even podcasts. Like, how are anyone supposed to know these things unless you're a PhD back then? So no one is at fault here, but I do understand now that it was the response to my response. When a boundary was set and I responded in a certain way and there were wrong ways that I responded, this is how I internalized it. That is what has made me become such an avoidant person of conflict. And that when I have a feeling that I don't like, I will swallow it, not speak it. And then the relationship, no matter what it is, erodes. This is with people who come on my walks, who I've had a very hard time removing from the community. You all know the story about me waiting 2 years to remove someone from the community because I could not articulate to him that his behavior was bothering me so much. This is also the case for coworkers. This is a case for why I wasn't promoted very much when I worked at Meta. This is the case for friendships that I will basically just leave without a trace instead of saying, hey, this thing you're doing is really upsetting me. And this is the root of a lot of my behavior. And I'm just sharing this because maybe someone out there is struggling with the same exact thing and they can't understand why, and they can't find that missing piece of the puzzle. I just invite you to explore what thoughts race through your head when you are in an activated state, when someone tells you a boundary. And if they sound like mine, lovingly investigate what would happen in your household as a child. And whatever you find there is perfectly okay. But it could be the missing piece of the puzzle. And what do I do with this information? What Cam was saying. He said something so profound to me earlier today. He said, the reason you struggle to set boundaries is because you struggle to receive them. And this is all reciprocal, okay? So if I was able to receive boundaries in a healthy way that didn't activate my fight or flight, I would not have my fight or flight activated when setting a boundary. This goes both ways. So how do I start to heal this? I start to work on my receptor. I start to work on how do I not feel like I'm going to die and that this person hates me and I did something wrong, and how do I stop beating myself up because someone said a preference? And if I can work on that, my voice will become unblocked. I will be able to say boundaries with more ease, and I will be able to communicate these things when they're feathers, when they're small little moments, instead of when they're building up and up and up and up and then I explode. That's what I'm working on now, and that's what I've been able to understand because of this moment we had today.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a huge piece of your life, and it takes a lot for someone to be of the state of mind and emotionally ready to share that. So I'm very, very grateful for you for doing so.
You're welcome, baby.
Amazing. I want to bring it to a more grand perspective that this within itself is generational trauma. This is it. This is the baseline of everything. It is when humans feel as if they do not have the sovereignty and autonomy to live life how they choose. And this is happening at a familial level and also at a societal level, where we continue to strip away the power, strip away the freedom of choice and free will from every human. And so sadly, the mixture of society and what society has told families to be in order to survive and be safe, oftentimes these things were necessary. Hey, don't talk to that person. Don't talk to that race of people. Don't talk to this. Don't talk to that. In the past, that allowed for people to survive. But as we are entering a stage of thriving, as we now have technology and a certain awareness level that not everyone around us is a threat. Now that we live in this air-conditioned home where a lot of the same fight or flight things that were needed in the past are no longer needed, we can drop this level of control and grasp we have on the next generation. And we start that, if we really want to create a better tomorrow, is by giving every individual the chance for them to speak up, even at the youngest of age, for what feels right for them in that moment. That doesn't mean they get to eat ice cream every single day, but that does mean the next time grandpa or grandma, whatever, runs to them, picks them up, yanks at their cheek and kisses them on the lips, whatever it is, without them even asking, and then steps them back down. Bye. Those small little minor things that happen to all of us, that is an invasion of boundaries. If another adult did that to another adult, we call the police. But as a child, that's completely okay. And again, this is just patterns that I've repeated, and the grandma, the grandpa, whoever's doing that, the family friend, it's all good intentions, but it is signaling within the body that my highest preference does not matter. Mm-hmm. And this happens again, so something minor like that, or something major, like, hey, you're going to go to this school, you're going to major in this, you're going to get these grades, or else. You're going to behave in this way. When you step out of the house, you're going to wear this type of clothes, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. The more militant it is, the more you don't have a choice here, you don't have a say here. What I say goes. The more we project that onto our child, the more they will lack the sovereignty and autonomy to freely express themselves, and therefore they will attract people that gave them the same level of freedom or lack thereof that you did. So what that means is a hard pill for many, many to swallow. But our inability to give autonomy to our children is why when they leave the nest, when they leave the house, they seek people that will give them the same amount of autonomy. This is why certain behaviors of, let's say, a father leads to his daughter attracting toxic men or just treating her with the same level of freedom or lack thereof that her father did. So these are the unconscious cycles that have been programmed within us throughout generations that no longer serve us. And it's important to give us nothing but grace and compassion, because this is just literally how we were raised. That's exactly it. That was how you were raised. That's not how we need to raise children going forward. That's not how we need to treat fully functioning adults going forward. And if we genuinely do want what's best for them, we let them decide what's best for them is. Because what's best for them, in our eyes, is just what we believe is best for them. But we're not them. We have not had their same human experience. And so it is of the best interest for everyone involved, whether it's the father or mother to the son and daughter, or the friend to a friend, or business partner, to give people the freedom and safety to have the space to speak what is their highest desire in that moment. To speak upon creating not saying a list, you don't need to write it down, but having a conversation around the terms necessary for both parties to want to interact going forward. If we have that, that's what's going to lead us closer to a reality that we all enjoy. And the lack thereof is the cause of all the pain and suffering in this world. It is the misunderstanding or disrespecting of another human's free will. And the earlier we start that for our own children, for the people in our own lives, and we allow them to fall and get back up, We allow them to experience. We allow them truly to love them, whether they do the exact same path you did to become this, and that, and now you make this much money and you're safe and you're okay. Look at the middle class, whatever it may be for you. If they want to follow that path, they can, but also give them the unconditional love and freedom necessary to do whatever they want. If they want to become a beach bum and move to Tahiti and do that, great. They are doing what's best for themselves through their lens of life. And our way of living is no better or no worse. It's just our preference. It's our choosing. And to create a great life, you just find people that have very similar preferences to you. And that may result in your favorite activities of going golfing, playing basketball, talking about certain topics, or what you will and will not condone. Certain ways of communicating. So all that being said, I just took it to the grand vision of what this is, back down to a individual to individual level. If we enter any relationship with an open mind and heart to simply just ask, like, hey, what would make you feel best in this relationship? What would make you feel best in this employment opportunity? What would make you feel best in whatever it may be? And giving them the agency, giving them the autonomy, that is how we heal all familial wounds. If you are a grandparent that wants your grandchildren to come to your house to play at Nana and Papa's house, you don't do so by creating a mega mansion. You spend all your life saving on this incredible house, hoping that now that each kid has a grandkid has a bedroom, that they'll come over. No. It's by changing our own mind, our own personality, so that we are immensely open and loving to everyone there. And the kids are very young before they're indoctrinated. They run to the parent, the uncle, aunt, the grandparent. They just love the most. They just feel more themselves around the most. Not the richest, not the one with the best network, not the one that's going to, give them the biggest check for Christmas or whatever else you can offer them. They always go towards and gravitate towards the one that they feel most loved by, unconditionally loved by. And so if you want to be more attractive to the sons, daughters, grandkids, friends, family, business, anyone in your life, you give them the chance to be their full selves. Because in this world, that is the hottest commodity. Because it's so scarce. And giving that to others will attract everything you ever could have wanted. So, what a talk on boundaries, baby.
Yeah.
What a talk.
I just want to echo what you were saying, because I feel like this is just so universally true. Like we say so many times, energy doesn't lie. And I've been learning this in a new way after we launched our communities. I kept getting this message, from the divine, from my intuition, just saying, like, you need to ask people. You need to ask. And this is something that I don't have a muscle for, because like I told you, with the boundary thing, this is very related. If you have a problem with boundaries, you probably have a problem with asking for help. And you probably have a problem for even letting anyone know that you want something for them, or you would like them to know about something, or that you would like or prefer them to have a certain kind of behavior, right? And if you're blocked in one area, you're probably blocked in all of them. That was the case for me. So the last 2 weeks, ever since we launched the communities, I've been working on this. Like I say they, but like the universal it doesn't want to make this easy on me. It wants me to learn lessons. It wants me to heal. It wants me to know that putting things out there isn't a big deal, right? And so what did it do? Right when we launched True Love Club, I had 4 people immediately sign up. And it was exactly the people who I thought were going to sign up, because they come to the gratitude calls, they listen to our podcasts, I go back and forth with them in comments. This is what's so funny. The people who immediately signed up were people I had a reciprocal energy exchange with. Okay. Now, there were a lot more people who had signed up in the past, not when it was live, but when it was like pending. There was about 40 of them who didn't sign up when it was live. And I had sent them an email and I thought, oh, wow, like that's so weird. These people signed up at one time and now only 4 of them are signing up. Like what changed, right? So I'm sitting there with myself and I'm like, oh, well, what if I just sent them an individual message and said, hey, this is available if you want to hop on in, right? And that made all the difference. And it was just such a great lesson because in these moments, when there are things that don't come naturally to you and things that you're working on, it will appear in every area of your life. The boundaries thing is appearing for me in my relationship with Cam right now in small ways that are very helpful. It's appearing for me in our communities and me having to speak my voice, me having to be totally fine with whatever people respond to me having to sit with all of these voices in my head that say, oh, well, they don't like me or am I going to be rejected, whatever. I've made peace with those with reps, literally. Now it's gotten to a point where I'm sending this off to anybody who it feels right, literally in the moment when I'm like, oh, you know what? This person could really use this. I'm just going to send it their way. It has become so much easier for me, so much lighter for me because I'm practicing. And all of it just feels so related that I need to share because this goes so much deeper than just relationships. This is the giving and receiving of life. And when you struggle with boundaries, you struggle with both of these areas in a very beautiful dancing way. And if anything we talked about resonated with you today, that's amazing. That means that you found a little area that you can practice, that you can work on with love and with compassion and with excitement, that on the other side of this issue is a life that feels so much better, so much more free, so much more flow. And that's exactly what I found. Every time I have an insight here, I get better and better in every way. So if this resonated with you, I'm saluting you. I cannot wait to hear all the insights that it has caused. And this one was special today, baby.
I think so too. This is definitely one of my favorites. And I think it's just so important for people to understand and embody, as we emphasize, that every relationship in your life can feel great.
Yeah.
It can feel incredible. Now, through our own personal lives, that means that some people, once I state my preferences, don't align with their preferences. And just, we fall away over a period of time.
Right.
But that makes room for people that have the same preferences as you, that you generally enjoy. And so, yes, because we are evolving, some people aren't able to catch up. That's completely okay. The door will always be open for them if they're ready, but it's going to happen on our terms, being respectful of us and being loving of us in ways that are reasonable. But it will attract so many others that want to play in that playground, that want to have fun with you on those terms because it matches their terms. And it's just having faith and trust that those people are coming, that those people are waiting for you to speak your truth.
Because they don't know it unless you speak it.
To create that space for a better relationship, a better life. So I'm so glad we're able to talk about this topic today. I'm so grateful for you for speaking on everything you did. And I think this is just going to be a big episode for a lot of people.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Something's coming to me in this moment just to say, like, how many people are afraid to ask, are afraid to just tell the truth because they're afraid of the response. And what if that fear of the response is what's keeping you stuck? Because like Cam was saying, if you just speak your preference and you trust that either the wrong people will fall away and the right people will come in, that is authenticity. True authenticity is having no friction between the reality that feels good to you and the reality you're living. When those two things are aligned, we're in full authenticity. But if you are swallowing the truth, you are swallowing your preferences, you just, oh, I don't want to be a bother, I'm scared, what if they reject me, what if they don't like me, what if? You're living in that reality, you will be stuck and you will feel stuck. But we can change that today. And we gave you lots of examples of how.
Just tell the truth.
So we are so grateful for you. Thank you for being here on this beautiful episode. What a good one. We will see you next week. We love you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Love y'all.
Bye-bye.